Seriously? Thank you. Wow. Just letting the healing heart speak for a moment. So there's an incredible gratitude for your presence here, for knowing that our minds communicate in a way that's completely unknown to the world, but is so fulfilling. Wow, it's just beautiful. So thank you so much for just being here, for being open to receive that. And such loveliness, that is really beautiful. Thank you for that. I really thank you so much. It's like that is such a great happening. So it is like we come together to celebrate our love for God and for each other and for yourself. That's a great celebration. That's wow. That's a realization, because it doesn't need anything. It's actually recognizing for what it is, what the relationship is, how whole is wholeness. Wholeness is complete. It doesn't need anything. That's the point of entry, you could say, into today's meeting of the Healing Heart. That's a very high, that's a very high frequency that we're literally like emitting to one another, in recognition that it comes from the same source. So that's absolutely wonderful. Now, this is going to be interesting, because the last thing I want to do is bring you down. But maybe now, with this bright light that is literally present here, we can laugh about the conflicts or the codependent tendencies that we have in relationships, if we have them. The necessity to help and fix others, basically also the continual being more into pleasing others than just being yourself, or thinking that you need to give advice while there wasn't even a request for an advice. And I could go on for a long time. Like all these tendencies that you have in your mind are basically present because you don't know who you are. And in order to cover that, you found your brother to practice fixing him, making him complete. And yeah, so that wasn't necessary, but you really thought you should do it. And not only that, you do it in order to give yourself temporarily a pretty good feeling, but then eventually, by having sacrificed that much within yourself, sacrificing that much, literally always saying, now, oh yeah, you let me know, you decide what we do, or you. It's like, as long as you are happy with this, I'm good. I admit to that. It's like, if that has been a tendency within your response to others, thinking that you're lovely doing that way, then you know also that didn't work. And that part can be a sudden explosion of hatred, a sudden shift and move that you have, like, well, forget it, I don't want to be with you anymore, or who knows what you have said. But that was your own build-up, you could say, of not even taking time to look at your own needs or to stay with yourself, instead of thinking that you needed to sacrifice your own ideas to be in the relationship. So here we have the theme of conflict, of relationships, of codependency. And so I made a little podcast that we're going to listen to, and this podcast is giving you an overview of the relationship between codependency and resentment. And I thought that was great. That was great, a great way to enter into the love-hate relationships of the planet Earth, and recognizing that the tendencies are found right there. And okay, so let's listen to that. The cost of helping others. The vicious cycle. How codependency breeds conflict in relationships. A look into resentments. Codependency, a pattern of behavior where an individual's sense of self is overwhelmingly defined by the needs of others, is a potent breeding ground for conflict in relationships. While often stemming from a desire to help and please, its core characteristics, poor boundaries, a deep-seated fear of abandonment, a need for control, and a chronic suppression of personal needs, invariably lead to a toxic dynamic of resentment, manipulation, and emotional turmoil. At its heart, codependency is an imbalanced and unhealthy interpersonal dynamic. The codependent individual derives their self-worth from sacrificing for their partner, often enabling destructive behaviors like addiction or immaturity in the process. This dynamic, while seemingly stable on the surface, is a pressure cooker of unspoken frustrations and unmet needs that frequently erupts into conflict. One of the primary drivers of conflict is the erosion of boundaries. The codependent, in their relentless effort to please and be needed, often allows their personal space, time, and emotional limits to be consistently violated. And this can lead to a sense of being taken for granted and exploited. When the codependent individual finally attempts to assert a boundary, it is often met with resistance or anger from the partner who has become accustomed to the lack of limits, sparking a significant conflict. Resentment is another inevitable consequence. The codependent's continuous self-sacrifice, while initially a source of validation, eventually curdles into bitterness. They may feel unappreciated for their efforts and angered by the lack of reciprocation. This resentment often simmers beneath the surface, manifesting in passive-aggressive behaviors, a suddenly emotional outbursting, or constant scorekeeping, all of which fuel arguments. The codependent's need for control is also a major source of friction. This control is not necessarily overt or aggressive. It often manifests as a form of helping or fixing the other person. The codependent believes that they know what's best and will go to great lengths to manage their partner's life, from their finances to their social interactions. this can be suffocating for the other person, leading to feelings of being smothered and controlled, ultimately resulting in power struggles and conflict. Furthermore, the fear of abandonment that underpins codependency creates a climate of anxiety and insecurity. The codependent individual may become excessively clingy, jealous and demanding of reassurance. Any perceived threat to the relationship, no matter how small, can trigger intense and often disproportionate reaction, leading to arguments fueled by insecurity and fear. Finally, the suppression of needs and feelings by the codependent individual creates a communication vacuum where true intimacy cannot flourish. By consistently prioritizing their partner's emotions and desires, the codependent's own needs go unexpressed and consequently unmet. This lack of honest communication prevents the healthy resolution of disagreements. Instead, issues are buried only to resurface again with greater intensity, often in the heat of an unrelated argument. In the essence, codependency creates a relationship dynamic built on a foundation of inequality and unspoken contracts. The very behavior of the codependent employs to maintain the relationship, people-pleasing, controlling and self-sacrificing, are the same behaviors that ultimately poison it with resentment, stifle genuine connections, and pave the way for a continuous and exhausting cycle of conflict. Breaking this cycle requires a courageous journey of self-discovery for the codependent individual to build self-esteem, establish healthy boundaries, and learn to value their own needs and feelings as equal important. All right, great. What is that? Well, you recognize something for sure. So that's exactly what we're going to take a look at. And we can do this in small groups. We can do it as a group discussion, but I don't think so. So let's make some small groups in a moment. So the one thing I want to share here is this. This fits, of course, perfectly with the idea of I trust my brother who is one with me. Now, to put this a little bit in context, because codependency is literally, in fact, melting into the relationship and losing yourself in it. That is not what is asked in trusting your brother. Not trusting your brother is let him do his thing, in fact, let him be himself and leave him free. But here is, and there's more to that, of course. Like in the human relationships, there's a lot of interaction, there's a lot of contracts and rules that might not necessarily be at the surface, but more like a pattern or something that you expect the other to do, or a certain amount of, well, this and this and this and this is really my demand from you. You have to adhere to that. Now you have to play according to the rules that we agree to. Now this part is recognizable in every relationship on earth, right? So in the total freedom of your one relationship, of your divine relationship, that is all taken care of. But in your human relationship, you want to optimize it. You want to let that work because you don't want to be too much occupied with any disturbances of the harmony and peace that seem to be functioning at times in the relationship. In other words, you have to come to a new practice. Maybe that's something I could share a little bit. It's like you have to come to a new practice in your relationship. Now, one of them is at least, this is the least you can do, is recognizing what are your needs. What is it actually that you're expecting in your relationship? And the other part, of course, is, am I willing to, in fact, die on a daily basis, die in this relationship, allowing it to be new all the time, allowing every day to be a completely new day with no references to the past, no holding on to old ideas, letting this be new so that you can share in the newness of it, and not establishing expectations and demands and desires and motives or achievements that you put in the future. So this can keep you busy. So the practice then, to bring it back, like there's in the transformational journey and the relationship changes. I want to say a little bit about that too. Like in the transformative procedure that you're in, the relationships change, whether that's a one-on-one relationship you have with your partner, or whether that's with your family, or whether, who knows what kind of relationships you have. So like the one fundamental change is that, in fact, Spirit has entered into your consciousness, so it has entered into your relationship at the same time too, and will use it for you to learn the lessons that you will learn in order to see that that you're free of them, in fact, or that you're free of the limitations that you imposed upon yourself or your neighbor. In fact, coming to the realization that you trust your brother completely, because he is one with you. What could possibly be in conflict with that? Now here's the crux of it all, and that has to do with the one question, who am I? How do I see myself will determine my possibilities to be basically at peace in any relationship that I have, in any one that I encounter. Like that will put everything back into my responsibility, my peace, and I extend from there. Like that's the only way that that can basically happen. Now that is good to know, but that's like then you have achieved the goal of that. Recognizing that it's all happening in you, you take full responsibility and literally set the other free by realizing this. So we're here in the middle of a process. Let's face it. We're here in the middle of a process. Your individual process of transformation. You are familiar with the things that you just heard. Maybe not all of them, maybe some of them. Now, this is what I want you to take a look at with the body that you're going to be selected with. What you see here is the syllabus, the Healing Heart syllabus. So here in part 2, circle 2, that's where we're in now, the cost of helping others. Now, we've looked at that. But here's a list. Some characteristics of the codependent. So I'll read them to you. Defined by the needs of another. In your relationship, you're defined by the needs of your partner, for instance. Self-worth by sacrificing for their partner. It's like you sacrifice your self-worth for your partner. Your partner is like more important to you than yourself. This is a characteristic of codependency. Relentless effort to please and be needed. Like you make a whole thing of it to please and to be needed. And a passive-aggressive attitude. Like you're not saying the things that you really feel, but you will let them feel what you really mean. A self-sacrifice. Like you're constantly giving up your needs in order to please the other. And on the other hand, you actually have a constant need for control. Or you have a deep fear that somebody will leave you. See, here's the suppression of feelings and needs. People pleasing. Deeply self-uncertain. You have actually a sense of worthlessness. But you see that as almost like as a good thing until it really, until you really lose yourself and don't even know what to think about anything anymore. One of the expressions of that would be that you're indecisive. Oh, the other one is procrastinating. That's another one. It's like so that means like you can't get the thing together, so to speak. You're always a little bit too late. Everyone always has to wait for you because you really are not completely present to get yourself together. So here the characteristics is where we work with, you could say. So you might have seen one that really tells you something about yourself, like, oh that's really me, or this is really me. That's great, because now remember that you're going to share that in your one-on-one with the one.